Hey, it's Nate here, and welcome back to the next lesson of Guitar Foundations. In this lesson, we're going to learn the third song for this course, and it's a little country, like folky tune that I wrote in the style of Darius Rucker. That's going to give us an opportunity to work on quite a few things. Number one, we're going to work on moving our bar chords all around the fretboard, playing in new keys, but we're also going to work on our strumming and kicking it up to the next level with something called a swung strumming pattern. So you're going to be working on a lot in this video. Before we get into it, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps get the word out there about this course, and also share it with your friends too if you know that they have been wanting to learn how to play the guitar. You can also pick up a copy of the Guitar Foundations ebook on natesavage.com or schedule a private lesson with me there if you're having trouble with any of these things. Okay, let's get into it. The first thing I want to make you aware of is just the bar chord shapes we're going to be using. And if you watched the last video in this course, this is going to be nothing new to you. Okay, so the shapes we're going to be using, and we're going to move this around to a couple different keys. We'll get to that later though. But it's just a G with the E shape, a D with the A shape, an E minor with the A minor shape, and then a C with the A shape. And we're in the key of G, at least to start out with here for this lesson. And we're playing a 1-5-6 chord progression. At least that's the foundation of it, the main part of the progression we're going to be using. And we'll learn more about what that means and how to tell that we're actually playing a 1-5-6 chord progression in the key of G later on in the music theory lessons for Guitar Foundations. But for now, just recognize that this is a very common, very important chord progression for you to at least have down and have the ability to play with your bar chords, and also to start learning how to recognize this progression by ear. So that 1-5-6 chord progression, the G major, D major, E minor, C major progression, is the foundation, or the first kind of half of our main chord progression for the song. And the cool thing about this song is it's just one progression throughout the entire song, so you just keep repeating it over and over again. So it gives you a lot of time to concentrate on just working on moving your bar chords around. That's the main thing, at least at first. So that's the first half of the progression: the G, D, E minor, and then C. And each one of those chords gets one measure, by the way. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 for the G, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 for the D, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 for the E minor, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 for the C. The second half of this chord progression is just E minor for one measure, bar on the 7th fret, A minor shape. 1, 2, 3, 4. And move down to a D major using the A major shape, bar on the 5th fret for one measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then back home to a G major using the E shape, bar on the 3rd fret, one measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then back to a D major for one measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's really good to kind of split this up into two separate chunks of the first 4 bars with that first initial 1-5-6-4 progression, and then the second 4 bars, just so you can kind of divide the challenge up and you don't get overwhelmed trying to do the whole thing at once, because you're going to find that this is pretty taxing on your fretting hand. If you're new to bar chords still, this is going to be a lot of work trying to get the transitions clean. And one thing you want to make sure to do when you're changing between bar chords, say I'm going from this G to this D, you want to have that G sounding really good, and then you want to let off the pressure so you can actually move, so you don't get that squeak, number one. Number two, so you don't get caught up trying to get your fingers up and change your bar to the 5th fret. So release the pressure. And you're probably going to want to do just that at the beginning, just working on that chord change from a G to a D. Once you're feeling good with that, add the next one in, or go to the next 2 chords. So from a D to an E minor, work on just that change. So just D to E minor, over and over again. And this is the kind of practice it takes to get really good at changing between these bar chords, especially the higher you get up the neck. It gets a little bit more difficult. Then maybe go from the E minor to the C. And work on just the individual transitions. And if you put in the time with that, all of a sudden, getting through the entire progression won't be as big of a deal. So do that for this 1-5-6-4, or the G, D, E minor, C. And then do it for the E minor, D, G, D progression, the second half. And when you're doing this initially, you can use just whole notes or quarter notes. We're going to be using an 8th note strumming pattern throughout this entire thing, but when you're first getting the chord transitions down, just use whole notes or quarter notes or something. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Second half of the progression. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's great, but let's say you're playing with a singer who's like, this is a little bit too low for me. Can you raise the key of the song? And this is where the magic of bar chords comes in. It's why it's such a great thing that you put in the effort to learn how to use them. The cool thing about bar chords is you can play in any major key you want now. If you know the original, chord progression, you can move it to any location on the neck, play in any major key without having to change anything except for your starting point. Let's go through an example so I can make this really clear for you. So if we're playing in the key of G to play this 1, 5, 6, 4 progression, right? What if this singer says, can you put it up one whole step? Well, what's one whole step on the guitar? It's 2 frets, right? So if we move our starting point up from this G note to the A note there on the 5th fret and just make our bar chord there, E bar chord shape, and use that as our starting point, and to keep everything the same relative to where we start, we can play that exact same chord progression, but we'll be in the key of A major now. So this is a really liberating tool as far as being able to play in new keys. So all we'll do is play through that exact same progression relative to where I started. So A, now the next chord, the 5 chord, would be an E major, bar on the 7th fret. Then I would go up and play the minor. The 6th chord would be an F sharp. That's the bar on the 9th fret. And then the 4 chord would be bar on the 5th fret. And that would be a D major chord. So exact same chord progression, just in a new key, and I don't even have to think about what the chords are really. I just think about those root notes, or I think about the root note, first of all, A, and then I think about where the other chords are in relation to A. So same thing, I just started up one whole step higher on that A instead of that G. So give that a try. Play an A, bar on the 5th fret, E shape, move up to where your bar's on the 7th fret, A major shape. That's an E chord, and then move your bar up to where it's on the 9th fret, A minor shape. It gives you an F sharp minor. I'm not too concerned about the names of the chords right now. I'm more concerned about that you recognize we're just keeping the same chord shape and progression and patterns relative to where we start. And then go down to the 5th fret, A major shape, to play a D chord. And you heard that. That's the first half of our progression in the key of A major. And it gets tighter the farther you go up the neck. So on acoustic, it may be a little bit tough for you, but that's just the kind of the nature of the beast. You have to get used to it and be able to really get your fingers in shape to where you can go through that chord progression in different spots on the guitar. Okay, let's look at the second half of this chord progression relative to our new starting point, A major. We already had our 1, 5, 6, 4. Now we need to finish it off with an F sharp minor, bar on the 9th fret, back to a 5 chord, an E, bar on the 7th fret, and then back to an A for one measure. And then finally end things off by going back to that E major, bar on the 7th fret, A major shape. And we're not doing anything different here. We're just changing our starting point from a G to an A and keeping things geometrically the same. So instead of starting on a G and going up 2 frets to play our D major with the A shape, we do the same thing. You start on an A and go up 2 frets and use that exact same shape to play an E major now. And I'm not really thinking about chord names when I do this. And as a matter of fact, you could do this, you can move this anywhere. Let's move it down one whole step. If you wanted to play an F major, all you'd have to do is use your F bar chord as a starting point and keep all your chords relatively the same to the starting point. And again, I'm not thinking about the chord names when I play that. I'm just thinking about my starting point and where the other chord shapes are in relation to that starting point. All right, let's talk about strumming a little bit more for this song. All it is a straight 8th note strumming pattern. So as soon as you get the chord transitions down for this chord progression, you want to start trying to play 8th notes with it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, okay, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And you may have to slow this way down, like 50, 60, 70 beats per minute, something like that, because the original tempo of the song, I think the slow version of the jam track is 120 beats per minute, and the original tempo, like the final tempo, is 150 beats per minute. So it's going out at a pretty good click of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So slowing it way down to where you can keep that strumming pattern going. That's pretty fast. So initially you're going to want to do. Maybe that, or even slower, making sure to keep your alternating down and upstroke strumming going. So I'd recommend going through that, just taking it 4 measures at a time. The first 4 measures, the 1, 5, 6, 4 part. And then once you're feeling good with that, then take the second half of the progression and put that alternating down and upstroke 8th note strumming pattern with it. But the ultimate goal of this lesson, and this is where we're going to get into some new skills as far as strumming goes, is what we call a swung or shuffled 8th note feel. And let me play it for you real quick, and I'm sure you'll kind of recognize it if you go listen to a lot of like country shuffle or swing music or the original jam track for this. You're going to hear this in it, or even the performance that I'm going to play for you here in a bit. Listen to that and you'll get a really good feel for how it sounds with the jam track. So straight 8th notes. Here's what straight 8th notes sound like. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Just 2 evenly spaced notes per beat. That 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Shuffled or swung 8th notes. When you have that, the first 8th note feels a little bit longer than the second one, so you end up with da 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 da. Something like that, and I'll play it for you and you can hear the difference. Here's straight 8th notes with the progression. Now here's shuffled or swung 8th notes. And you can hear how there's a completely different feel. Instead of that's something that you're gonna have to put in the time and effort to do, and it's probably a good idea at first to just put a metronome on. Actually, I have my phone here. I'm gonna bring up tempo and show you the difference between a swung 8th note fill and a regular 8th note fill. Okay, here's a regular 8th note fill. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Here is a swung 8th note feel. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And hopefully you can hear how that first 8th note being longer and the second 8th note being shorter, as it were, kind of makes it feel like there's a flat tire, a car driving along with a flat tire. And that's a feel you're going to come across a lot in country and blues, so it's super important to get down really well. So I'd recommend, if you don't have tempo, go download it, and you can set your 8th notes on the bottom right hand corner to either normal, here, let me see it here, to either normal 8th notes, or you can swing them. That's a really important feel to get down, and I'd really recommend before going any further with this song that you sit there and just put this on swung 8th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 versus this. Yeah, I can't even do it with that on, so 3 and 4 and 1. That's straight. Here's swung 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And super important to get down really well. And for all you more technically minded people, I'm going to show you where this comes from. You may want to just listen to the song if you're not so technically minded and work on getting that feel down. But if you are technically minded, here is something that might help. And I'll show you where we get our swung 8th note feel from. So if you have regular 8th notes, and 3 and 4, and that's 2 evenly spaced notes per beat, right? 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, okay? To get through this example or through this explanation, we need to learn about a new note subdivision. It's called 8th note triplets, and that's when you have 3 evenly spaced notes per beat. 3, not 2. So I'm going to change that to 8th note triplets right now, and the way you can tell you're dealing with the 8th note triplet is if you see normal 8th notes, there's 3 of them, and you have little brackets with a 3 on it. So listen to this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's 3 evenly spaced notes per beat. Okay? And it's a really weird feel to get down. And again, you can switch this in tempo on the bottom right. to eighth note triplets for your beat, so it can help keep you on track. But the idea is if you have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, I can't do that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 evenly spaced notes per beat. When you have a shuffled eighth note fill or a swung eighth note fill, all you're doing is taking the middle, I can't do it, the middle triplet out of the equation. So you have triplet, 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 or 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. And that ends up giving the feeling of this first eighth note longer because it's actually taking up the time space of 2 eighth notes. So you have da 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 da. So I hope that makes sense. If not, listen to the jam track, to the performance on this, and you will hear the shuffle fill versus the straight eighth notes. So here's straight eighth notes again. Same tempo, swung eighth notes. And this is kind of like 2 lessons in one, but I wanted it to be something that could really propel you into this style of folk or country where you're going to have a shuffle feel to get a lot of these songs right. And if this is like a roadblock for you, don't let that be the case. You can play just straight whole notes or even straight quarter notes along with this song. So playing just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's completely fine if you want to do that, just so you can work with your bar chords. If your bar chords are feeling really good, try and work on this swung eighth note fill for your strumming along with it. Normally, this would be where we talk about the layout of the song, but I wanted to make the song as simple as possible for you so you could concentrate on getting your bar chords moving around really smoothly and then eventually working on that swung eighth note strumming too. So all you have to do for this song is repeat our main chord progression, those 8 measures, over and over and over again. And you know, there's obviously parts that are like verses and that are more subdued and quieter, so you can kind of lighten up on your strumming, and then there's parts that are more like choruses, so you can bring your strumming up, make it a little louder. Just follow that and just keep track of where you are with the main chord progression, and you should be all right for the entire song. The main challenge here is going to be the transitioning between the bar chords. I can tell you that right now. It's going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be worth it because, like I said, once you can move these bar shapes around, you're going to be able to play in any major key that you want using all these chords. Okay, I have jam tracks for you for this song. The first one is 120 beats per minute to kind of slow things down. And before you get into that jam track, I'd really recommend slowing the progression down with a metronome at 60, 70 beats per minute and working your way up to 100 and then finally 120 so you can play along with the first version of the jam track. I have another one that's 150 beats per minute, and that's kind of the ultimate goal. I would say it's the ultimate rhythm guitar goal of this entire course. So if you can do that, you're doing really good. So if it's tough, just realize that it's going to take some time to build all of this together into the perfect storm where you can play along to this at the full tempo. Here is a performance of the song just so you can hear what it sounds like. Really pay close attention to the chord transitions, where you are in the song, and particular attention to the 8th note swing fill on the strumming pattern here. And again, if you just don't understand it or you can't get it with your hand, tap it first and just tap along to the song. That may be a really good starting point for you. Here you go. Okay, here are your assignments for this lesson. Number 1, play the main progression in G using bar chords. Number 2, play the main progression in A, the key of A major, using bar chords. So just move everything up a whole step. Number 3, understand how the swing fill, the swung 8th note fill works. Number 4, practice the swung 8th note strumming pattern on its own. Don't even try to play through the chord progression, just work on its own first. Number 5, play Rock and Train, this play along song with no jam track and no metronome. Just work on the progression with a strumming pattern as slow as you need to. Number 6, play Rock and Train with the jam track or with the metronome at whatever tempo you can do it, working toward the goal of getting to 150 beats per minute. Let me just encourage you, most people that are going through this will have to spend a good amount of time on it because there's a lot of really core skills, physical skills for the guitar that you have to get down to get through this lesson, and that's okay. I'm just doing this to help you with your expectations. This is not going to take you a day or 2 or 3 or a week or 2 usually to get this type of thing down. And if you can do it in a week or 2, consider yourself blessed and consider yourself a very hard worker, because I know you'll be putting in a lot of work on the song if you can do it that quickly. Anyway, my main point is it's going to take a lot of hard work, and if you have any questions or need any help with this, you can always leave a comment below. I'll get back to you there, or email me, nate@natesavage.com. And if you need to book a private lesson with me, go to natesavage.com and do that. The first lesson is always complimentary. And also share this with anyone that you can that you know has been wanting to learn how to play the guitar. Good luck with this one. If you have any questions, again, get with me and we'll get everything ironed out, and I'll see you in the next lesson.